The Audience Manager is a tool in your Twitter ads account for you to review and manage your audiences. Once an audience is loaded into Twitter ads, you can use the Audience Manager to view the details about that audience. You can also monitor the audience status, view the audience size, edit it, or delete the audience. From the Audience Manager, you can also create new audiences. By default, when you first click the Audience Manager tab, you'll be prompted to create your first audience. For my first audience, I usually add my current email list of customers. Just type in your audience name, select email addresses, and then upload the .csv or .text list of those emails. If you don't have any email lists or an audience that falls into this list, mobile phone numbers, Twitter usernames, user IDs, mobile ad IDs, that's okay. We can move on to tailored audiences created via conversion tracking. So besides uploading email lists, my next favorite audience to create are Twitter usernames. So while in my first example I said click email audiences and then upload a CSV of all those emails, if you're running ads to a specific list of people who follow X Twitter username, save yourself the time of constantly adding each follower in every Twitter ad and create this Twitter usernames audience. So I create a .csv file and add each @handle of these usernames I want to target for my specific ads, and then I upload it to this create an audience page. I'll name it, for this example, Alzheimer-based Twitter handles, click Twitter usernames, and as you can see, these are a list of @handles that are Alzheimer-based. I've already created. I can just copy out this column and create a CSV of this list of Twitter usernames. So now when I create an ad, I can click the audience, and instead of building out that same follower list of all these handles, I can just click the custom audience and select this Alzheimer-based Twitter username, created audience list I already made. So here I am in an actual ad creation. You'll see the audience. So you can select what region I want to target, what gender, but see this? Tailored audiences are those custom created audiences I was talking about. So we just uploaded that email list. We just uploaded that Twitter username of handles. So all I do is type in the name of your audience. So once on your Audience Manager page, under the Tools Audience Manager, click the Create New Audience button in the top right. As you can see, the options include uploading your own list, as we just did with the Excel.csv file. But next, let's make a tag to collect website visitors. So first, name this new tailored audience. For these website tag audiences, I like to name it in accordance to what audience I'm creating. So whether it's all website traffic or a specific page, such as the checkout thank you page, name it that accordingly. Next, you'll see two options for tags, a universal tag or a single event tag. For the universal website tag, which I recommend, this is a universal tag that lets you implement it once, and then you can define rules based on your user behavior. Now for audiences based on the single event website tag, these should only be used if you can't use the universal tag. For example, if you want to track occurrences on a single page, such as an iframe, when you embed a YouTube video to play on a single page, that's within an iframe. So people don't have to go to another website, right? So you want to track that single event or YouTube video play, you can track it with this single event tag. Another non-page load event is an in-page submit form. For example, the MailChimp email submit field. Oftentimes you see that email submit field in the header on people's websites. It doesn't load to a new page once you submit your email. So again, you want to track this audience via a single event tag. So unless you want to build an audience around a single event, such as that embedded video play or in-page submit form that isn't directing people to a new page, I advise using the universal website tag. Now after selecting your tag, you will have the option to tell this audience tag what you want it to track. So my first tag audience I always create is all website visits. This will create a nice base audience for retargeting ads in the future. So consider this audience your base of warm users who already know your website, know your brand, and will be more responsive to sales ads or conversion ads in the future. Next, I will create an exact URL and URL contains audiences for very specific audiences I want to target ads at. What I love about Twitter is that you can really niche down these custom audiences with this exact URL and URL contains option. Twitter gives you the option to add conditions to each of these. Let me show you what I mean. So see this example. I first selected exact URL and then input CourseEnvy.com/Udemy. Then I clicked add another condition, selected URL contains, and input the text Udemy. So I can remove this condition or continue to add more conditions. So what does this mean? By selecting exact URL, this will trigger a conversion event when a user visits a page with a Twitter universal website tag that matches your rule. So for exact URL, this means an exact match of the URL you input. As for URL contains, this will trigger the conversion event whenever a user visits any of the pages with the Twitter universal website tag that matches your rules. So URL contains is case sensitive and checks if the website URL includes the specific text. This is the recommended method for identifying specific conversion events based on a URL. So as you can see in my example, I want to build a Twitter audience of people who navigate to the exact URL of CourseEnvy.com/Udemy or any URL that contains the text Udemy. So by doing this, I am collecting all the traffic to this exact URL and all the traffic to URLs that contain the keyword or text Udemy. One important note though, use URL contains only if you have very specific URLs that you know contain only the text you intended to collect traffic for. So for example, I know that this is the only URL on my website that contains the word Udemy. So I'm good with bundling this audience traffic in with the exact URL. So this URL contains would collect all the people who didn't go to that exact URL. For example, maybe they input into the address bar directly CourseEnvy.com/Udemy and didn't find it on Google where it has the www parameter. But let's say I forgot about a blog post I created that included the text Udemy in the title or URL of that blog post. Now this Twitter audience will be skewed because it's not only collecting the traffic to the exact URL CourseEnvy.com/Udemy, but it's also collecting traffic from that random blog post that included the text Udemy. So just be careful when using URL contains. Once you've added all the conditions you want, just scroll down, click the I agree box, and then click the Save Tailored Audience button. So once you've created an audience that uses the universal website tag, you'll need to install it on your website. So if you didn't copy the universal website tag code right away once you created the audience, that's fine. You can get back to it under Tools, Conversion Tracking, and right here, View Code and Installation Instructions for the universal website tag. So click that. So for installing the universal website tag, they advise copying this snippet below and pasting it at the bottom of all pages on your website before the closing body HTML tag. So we'll copy this all. Then you'll want to go to the editor of your website. So for us, we use WordPress. So under Appearance, Editor. So rather than installing this universal tag on every web page, just install it into a theme feature that appears on every page, such as the theme footer and the theme header. So let's just click theme footer. So like Twitter advised, paste it in before the closing body tag. So we'll put some spaces there, paste it in, and there we go. We have it commented out. It's the Twitter universal website tag code.